Your Honor, I want to start briefly with outlining some of the First Amendment and 14th Amendment case law that applies. There is limited case law regarding how to deal with limited public officials, and most of it is in the context of defamation, but I think it's a helpful analogy. Okay. McIntyre v. Jones, 194 P. 3rd 519, which is a Colorado Court of Appeals case from 2008.
Oh, I just got 194. What else?
194 P. 3rd 519, and it's a 2008 Colorado Court of Appeals case. That case breaks down the correct analysis for defamation, but I think it relates to this because what a defamation case is about is what is not protected speech under the First Amendment, and what we are dealing with here is avoiding a prior restraint that would impact protected speech. So therefore, anything that would be defamatory or not covered by the defamation laws would therefore be something that could be restrained under the First Amendment and the 14th Amendment. In McIntyre, the Court of Appeals breaks this down into a four-part inquiry. First is that it must involve a matter of public concern, which is a case-by-case inquiry, and it embraces an issue about which information is needed or appropriate, where the public may reasonably be expected to have a legitimate interest in what is being published. It can be fairly considered as relating to any matter of political, social, or other concern. Second, for purposes of this hearing, we do acknowledge that both Ms. Oriani and Ms. Walsh are limited public figures. Whereas a public figure is one who has assumed a role of special prominence in the affairs of society, for example, a movie star or the President of the United States, a limited purpose public figure is someone who voluntarily injects himself into a particular public controversy. In this case, for example, the Watts matter or any other true crime issues that each of them is reviewing. Number three, it has to involve an issue of constitutional fact. So whether the statement involves a matter of public concern, whether the person is a public official or a limited public figure, and whether the statement constitutes, and this is super important, a protected opinion. And so what this is aimed at doing is making sure that journalists can publish opinion pieces about even limited public figures as it relates to an individual controversy. Using this framework, we can determine that the permanent restraining order that we are seeking in this case, which we are absolutely seeking to define more clearly for Ms. Oriani, would not be violative of the First or 14th Amendment. The statements in this case about Ms. Walsh that we have talked about throughout the day today are not a matter of public concern. They're the exact opposite. They're about immensely private matters relating to miscarriage, her husband, her 14-year-old daughter. And Ms. Walsh is a person who has taken pains to not reveal her true self and not provide any information about her family online. And while she is a limited public figure, that is for purposes of a specific type of controversy that is in the true crime arena. It is not, it does not make her open game for dealing with any old thing that comes up in her personal life. Number three, the personal information and destructive and harassing comments to Ms. Walsh broadcast, across this YouTube channel is something that Ms. Walsh has expressed concerns about, and I think those concerns are borne out today. But Ms. Oriani has a following of people who are willing to be, I think, openly dishonest in order to assist her. And when that comes to people serving papers that they understand they have no business serving just to harass her on Ms. Oriani's behalf, that is an alarming development. Most importantly, the information that Ms. Oriani is expressing on her YouTube channel are not a personal opinion. It is personal details about Ms. Walsh. It is not a personal opinion. If she was posting the absolutely obscene Shazam videos that she had talked about and discussing the Watts case, that would be something that I find abhorrent, but it would be something that is protected by the First Amendment. Disclosing someone's address, posting pictures of their husband who's a private person, and doing other things is not part of that. And so applying that analysis to the prongs the court has to determine in this case, number one, Ms. Oriani did commit acts constituting grounds for issuance of a protection order. Nothing that Ms. Walsh testified to is controverted at all by Ms. Oriani. And in fact, I think the record is very clear that before the two even met or had anything to do with each other, Ms. Oriani was so desperate to get Ms. Walsh's attention that she posted a photo of her husband during a trailer, and that was in Exhibit 14D on 1/5/21. And then a year later, she has another video on 12/31/21 where she is admonishing Ms. Walsh for not responding when that video of her husband was posted the first time and then posted a second time. Although the court heard about a lot of different concerning behaviors tonight that can kind of broadly be categorized as content that is broadcast to a group of people that is intended to harass and intimidate Ms. Walsh by providing confidential health information, confidential information about her personal life, confidential information about her husband and child, her IP address with her zip code, her full name, and other things she has tried to keep secret. I think it all is really encapsulated well into what happened last night. And what happened last night, based on the testimony of Ms. King and Ms. Abeda, who testified contrary to one another in several respects, and I think they were taking great pains to please Ms. Oriani. They both testified that they served a document that they knew was not proper service. The court has the exhibits on 10G, 10H, showing what, and then 10A through D and 10E, that it was not one subpoena, it was two. It included a subpoena to Ms. Oriani's 14-year-old daughter, and what I think was a transparent attempt to intimidate her to not show up today, that nobody thought that was good service. Ms. King testified sort of confusingly that she didn't understand what she was doing there, and she was very reticent to say who she knew and what her job was, even though she flew here from Iowa to be present at this hearing. Ms. Abeda testified that she knew full well it wasn't good service, that she did it at Ms. Oriani's request, that Ms. Oriani had given her the documents, then advised her that they were quashed, and while they both tried to backtrack and act like they were only serving Mr. Walsh, which would have been harassing enough, they also attempted to, and I hesitate to use the word service, that is certainly not service, but they included the subpoena to Ms. Walsh's minor daughter as part of that in what is an escalation of prior threatening and harassing behavior which occurred online, and then they showed up at her house. This is someone who flew here from Iowa to do Ms. Oriani's bidding, and another person who is essentially a fan of her YouTube channel who is driving around doing her bidding. And I think that escalation really goes to the second prong, where unless restrained, Ms. Oriani is not only not going to stop, she's going to continue to escalate her intimidating and harassing behavior of Ms. Walsh. And I request that the court grant the permanent restraint.
Counsel, on the first prong, there are certain areas that the court must find before an order of protection can be granted. And those are found at 13-14-104.5. You said you think that there are ample grounds, and you have cited reasons, but I'd like you to marry those reasons with one of those categories.
Thank you, Your Honor. I believe that this falls in the category most prominently of to prevent stalking. Under 13-14-104.5 1A, what stalking is, the way that it's defined in the Colorado Revised Statute, is sort of can be understood shorthand to be sort of the like harassing type behavior, but with the equivalent or with the addition that it is conduct that is likely to cause and does cause, or likely to cause a reasonable person emotional distress and does cause Ms. Walsh emotional distress. And in this particular case, the persistent harassing behavior, the contact, the needing to block her, and then Ms. Oriani's escalating behavior once she was blocked is absolutely harassing. It would certainly qualify as harassment under the laws of Colorado, and it is something that would cause an ordinary person to experience extreme emotional distress. And very importantly, it did cause Ms. Walsh extreme emotional distress. She testified that she was having insomnia, that she had to take additional anxiety medications, that she was distraught because her husband had to take down all of his social media because he'd become a target. and that she was experiencing very acute physical issues, including increased high blood pressure. And looking at 18.3.602, which is the definition of stalking, it says a person commits stalking if directly or indirectly the person knowingly, repeatedly follows, approaches, contacts, places under surveillance, or makes any form of communication with another person, a member of that person's immediate family, or someone with whom that person has or had a continuing relationship in a manner that would cause a reasonable person to suffer serious emotional distress and does cause that person, a member of the person's immediate family, or someone with whom that person has had a continuing relationship to suffer serious emotional distress. For purposes of this paragraph C, a victim need not show that he or she has received professional treatment or counseling to show that she suffered serious emotional distress, although Ms. Walsh did testify that she had. And one of the other elements of stalking is there has to be a credible threat. What the definition of a credible threat under that same statute is a threat, a physical action, or repeated conduct that would cause a reasonable person to be in fear for the person's safety or the safety of her immediate family, or of someone with whom the person has or had a continuing relationship. The threat need not be directly expressed if the totality of the conduct would cause a reasonable person such fear. And in this case, I believe that the totality of Ms. Oriani's conduct is a credible threat that has placed Ms. Walsh in fear. I think it constitutes stalking under 18.3.602, and I think that pursuant to 13.14.104.5, a protection order in this case is appropriate to prevent stalking.
Thank you.